Hariza Kwanzaa. Uh, Hariza Kwanzaa. Swahili for happy Kwanzaa. And welcome everyone. Welcome Flagstaff. Welcome to our regional, our U.S. guest, our international guest. Welcome one and all. I know I always come on and say this is a special live stream. They all are very special. This one is extremely special. We have so much that we're celebrating today. So we're in the third day of our Kwanzaa celebration. And but today is also the 100th LBE Community Dialogue live stream. So we have a very special guest this evening, and it's no coincidence that our special Kwanzaa leader for this evening is someone who is committed to calling us all here in the Flagstaff community. They are known for calling people to action and for getting people to come together on matters of common interest. And so that's what this third day of Kwanzaa is all about. It's about collective work and responsibility. And that is definitely the guiding force for the Lived Black Experience Project. And this special Kwanzaa leader for this evening is one that keeps us on point. Um, if you follow these dialogues, the name comes up quite often. So you may not be surprised if this is your first time joining us. An extra special welcome, and you are in for something very special to meet a special community member here in Flagstaff. So this is the 100th Lived Black Experience live stream, and we think this is an incredible accomplishment. Each live stream has been at an average of about 90 minutes. And for those of you who've been following us, again, thank you. And sometimes depending on the topic, we are known for going over, but the average has been about 90 minutes. And so we did the math very early this morning, and the math told us that that is 9,000 minutes of community dialogue, bringing in special guests. Some of us that are a part of the project, sharing our expertise and experiences. And then we took the math even further. So that equals 150 hours. And our resident facilitator, Sister Kara House, came up with the fact that this is she branded our 150th our versary. So shout out to Sister Kara for her marketing skills on that. So we are just really, really excited. And to our guests, our viewers, our supporters over these last almost 2 years, thank you for supporting us, because if this is not community engagement and impact, I always say that we come here, we're doing this to educate and to enlighten and to inform. And we want everyone to get that message about what is required exactly to achieve liberation and social justice. And what are those experiences that have brought us here to this Lived Black Experience project? And so I would ask my creative Flagstaff community, I would ask them if this is not what community engagement and impact is. Please, we would like to know exactly how would you define community engagement and impact. And so we're at day 3. For those of you who've been here all 3 days, thank you for being with us. Day 1, we started with celebrating community and talking about the importance of community and what that is. On yesterday, we celebrated self-determination and how we as individuals, but also as a people, as a community, how we get to define ourselves. How do we get to establish ourselves in these multiple communities that we find ourselves in, but yet we are all one. And so that and it's out there for you to go back and watch, and we invite you to do that. And so today we're here with Ujima, which means collective work and responsibility. And when the founder, Dr. Karinga, created this 7-day holiday, this third day of Ujima, collective work and responsibility, he thought should be the day that we reflect and discuss and plan as a community on how to build, strengthen, and maintain our community, and how do we do that together. And then in doing that together and working together, that we should help one another within our community. And that's why we're so excited for our special Kwanzaa leader this evening, because this is someone who knows what this is all about and has devoted their life, their professional life, and now they're in retirement and still working for the community, for collective work and responsibility. So last evening, I talked about the theme this year for Kwanzaa that Dr. Karinga laid out for us, and it's practicing Kwanzaa and the 7 principles, ensuring the well-being of the world. And that theme definitely, if our other brothers and sisters, if you're still saying, oh, well, this is something just for Black or people of African descent, African Americans, this is just for them, then you need to come and join us more often on these community dialogues that we're having. Because another thing that we often say is that African and African American and Black history is America's history. And so Kwanzaa, we are sharing this year and every year. Is definitely something that the entire community, no matter who you are, how you identify, we all want a better world. We all want to know that our well-being is we're safe. Our families are safe. We can be together at work and work together cooperatively, and that is what a well-being world looks like. Even in our differences, to be able to come and sit down at the table and to discuss them civilly and respectfully. So, with that being said, I am so excited to have our special guest. Our Kwanzaa leader for this evening is Ms. Deb Harris, and no stranger to the Flagstaff community. She has dedicated um, 30 years of her life to education, to higher ed, to mentoring not only students, but to big kids like me. And I often like to refer to her as our chiefess. And that is a high title in the African culture. This is the person that you go to for advice. This is the person that sort of they have the bigger vision. When we're down here just seeing here, they're here or over there looking back onto situations and giving advice on how we should go about governing ourselves and our community. So it is no coincidence, Miss Deb, Chiefess Deb, that you should be here tonight to talk with us about community, the collective work of community, and the responsibility. Thank you so much for being here. Happy Kwanzaa to you and your house. You're on mute.
Thank you so much. I am definitely honored. Every time I hear you say chiefess, my blood gets all warm and fuzzy, because I really am honored by that name. And I'm honored that my community sees me in that light, and that you see me as a person who is committed to community, and who walks that walk. Um, you know, uh, it's always helpful when older people demonstrate to younger people uh, things that they're supposed to do, because a lot of times they don't hear what we say, but they watch everything that we do. And
Yes.
so more can be learned um, by watching. And so with that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Ujima. This is the principle that I think ties all of Kwanzaa together. It talks specifically about collective work and responsibility. It talks about making our brothers and sisters problems our problems, and then solving those problems together. So oftentimes we want to push some people aside and we don't want to listen to what they have to say, but collectively we are much smarter than we are individually. And so if we bring all of our community together, like we've done with the Live Black Experience Project, we've brought the community together and we're trying to solve issues and concerns and problems collectively. That things that might affect you or might affect our elders may not affect me, but it is my responsibility to take part in that discussion and to try and bring whatever I can bring to the table to help solve whatever the problem is. And Ujima is a principle that has been practiced by people for centuries. And it is very prevalent in the African diaspora. Uh, from the time we were created, we learned and we knew that we had to work together, that our survival depended on our collective work. And so with that, it's important for people in communities to understand that they have a responsibility in their community to come together and to work in community to solve issues and problems. We can't do this by ourselves. And every time we think that we're in this by ourselves, we make a mistake, and we lessen the impact what we could have by doing that. And so for years, I've felt that if we could learn that one principle, and if we could take that principle to heart and to live it every day of our lives, our communities, our society, and our world would be a much better place for all of us. Um, I just want to talk a little bit about examples of collective work and responsibility. Um, those of you who live in Flagstaff, Arizona, uh, know that there are lots of churches in Flagstaff, and some of them are very large, and some of them are very small. And there was a small church, or is a small church in Flagstaff, and it's called Harbor Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church. That church has been in. There's been a congregation in Flagstaff for over 100 years. They have a small church that sits on the corner of San Francisco and Ellery. And the roof on that church was pretty much falling apart. And the congregation, being as small as it is, knew that there was no way that they could do that, replace that roof by themselves. And so what they did was they went out to the community. And it was an overwhelming response from the community, not just in Flagstaff, but the community in the state of Arizona, in the Southwest, all over the country. I believe that they received donations from every state in our country or in the United States, and some from without. And so, that's a perfect example of people looking at a need and a problem. And even though those folks who live in Minnesota, who live in Chicago, who live in Iowa, did not know this congregation, but they knew that there was a need. And so they came together to address that concern and to resolve that issue. And so now Harbor Chapel has a brand new roof, and it looks beautiful. And so I shared that story because so often people think that I'm only have to be concerned about what happens on my street or on my block. But it is important for us to understand that we have to be responsible for things that may not directly affect us, but in the long run, it does, because it's about the humanity in us. And we learn so much when we take self out of the equation, and we think about others and how we're affected by what happens to them. There's a saying that you often hear, and it is so true, because we are our brothers and sisters' keepers. And so we have to take that to heart and to really, really, really address that in a way that our younger brothers and sisters or our friends or other people in our community can see the work that we're doing. And so it makes it helpful for all of us. I also wanted to just talk a little bit about our obligation. And people oftentimes run from that word, obligation. But this principle, Ujima, talks about obligation and responsibility. And so we shouldn't be afraid of our obligation to our community. It is something that we should do with a glad heart and with an open heart. And so I encourage people not to run away from words that seem like that they may be something that you think that you can't do or that is too big. Each person in the community brings something to the table, and they have to embrace that because they do have a responsibility and an obligation to their community. And it's okay to have an obligation to your community. And so I just wanted to help people or comment on that and ask people to really think about how does that make you feel? How do you act out your obligation to your community without getting overwhelmed. And so that too is important to think about that. Also, when I think about Ujima, there's some simple things that each of us can do every day in our everyday lives to evoke that principle, or to let people know that we're walking that walk. And so simple things like making sure that your neighbors are okay, checking to make sure that that older citizen in your community has what they need. Perfect example is that I'm an older woman, and I'm thankful for my age and to have been blessed. And sometimes my neighbors will, when we get a snowstorm, they'll come and they'll clear my driveway because they know that, I may not be able to do that by myself. And so no one asked them to do that. That's something that they do on their own because because I'm a part of that community. And so I think that each of us has to find that thing or those things that we can do to help people in our community and to help them as our way of making their problems or their concerns our concerns. And with that, Sister Bernadine, I'm going to kind of close right there, and I'm going to kind of have a dialogue with you, and we can talk a little bit more about some of the things that I may have spoken about. And of course, I have lots of other stuff that I could talk about, but I don't want to just ramble on and on. I want to see if there may be questions from our audience or questions that you might have, other examples that people might want to share, because I think we learn from each other.
Exactly. And so we do have two questions from the audience. And please, if there are more, please post your questions, your comments, and let's talk about it. So, Ms. Deb, what our first question is, so how do you personally, because you are involved with so much in the community on so many different levels, and when I say that, it's not just your neighborhood where you live, your street. You're still involved with the campus community. You're involved with the city community, the county community, some other special communities within Flagstaff. So how do you keep going and working so hard for your community, especially when most would say your obligation to the community, which I think is very disrespectful, has long passed, because that is not truth. In I can only speak for our community as people of African descent, that you are needed, a very necessary part of our community until the ancestors call you to sit with them. So how do you keep going and working so hard for our community?
For me, that's a very easy question to answer, is because I see a need. And whenever I see a need, I feel obligated to participate in trying to help fill that need. I don't look at it as drudgery. It's not something that I mumble and groan about. I do it with a glad heart. I also think that, to whom much is given, much is expected. And so I've been told that for most of my life. And so I know that I've been blessed. And so I have a responsibility to those around me. And so I think that what you put out, you get back. And you don't do it because you're expecting anything back. You do it because it's the love of community, and it's the love of people, and that you do that with love. Now, sometimes when I'm talking to people about a particular issue that's affecting a group of people, and I can be a little direct, they might not think that I'm doing this out of love, but it is out of love. And sometimes, the you have to make sure that that message is being heard, and that people are listening to people. And so sometimes you need to get a little forceful with
Mhm.
that. But for me, it's simple. It's like there's a need, and you have to try and feel that need. um, and I can go home at night after that and rest very comfortably, because I've done all that I can do to help address that need. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what would you say, what is it that keeps you so passionate about building and fighting for our community?
oh I guess it's just something in me. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is about Esther. I just love Esther's spirit, and I loved her unselfishness. Um, and I say often when I'm dealing with something, if I perish, I perish. Because I think that, pulling self out of it, this is not for me. This is for, community, or this is for, whoever. And so my passion comes from, I guess, just living in this world and seeing that there are people who have, and those are people who have not. There are people who have voices, and there are people whose voices have been silenced. Um, and so I think that the passion is that it's important for all of us to give what we can give. And so this is what I can give. And
Yeah.
so that passion, I care about people. I deeply care about people. Um, and even when I'm scolding some of my young brothers and sisters, I'm doing it because I care about them, and what their lives are going to look like, and how they're going to grow and develop. Um, I don't think I'm any smarter than the average Joe or Jill. I just think that I have ideas and things pop into my head, and it's like, okay, we need to do that because it's the right thing to do, or we need to say that because I think it's the right thing to do. So I don't know. Did I answer that question for
You
you?
did. Yeah, no, you did. And I mean you've actually throughout you're speaking with us this evening, you're sharing with us earlier on when you said that our survival and our
Mhm,
being as
mhm,
a community depends
mhm.
on our collective work.
Yeah. Mhm,
Um, and Miss Deb, that is why, immediately meeting you now almost 13 years ago, coming up in 2022,
mhm,
um, was was what that was what I immediately recognized in you. And coming from a culture that's still deeply rooted in its African practices and
mhm,
traditions.
mhm.
That's why I was like, this is like the chiefess. She's like the chiefess. Because not everyone, and in this day and time, is willing to take that on. We want the work done, but we do not want to step up and sit in that space or place of leadership. I'm getting another question here about on the topic of selfishness, because I think that is a prime example of selfishness. We want change. A lot of us want
Mhm,
change, but we do not want to. put our hands together or put our hands in with others in order to create change.
Yeah.
So what would you say? What words of wisdom can you give us this evening? How do we? How would you have this platform encourage those who are for whatever reason standing on the sidelines, standing in the backgrounds, hiding out at home? Because that when you know there's work to be done, that's kind of an example of selfishness. So but what would you say to those individuals? How can you get us? I know how you get us fired up, and I want you to use use those methods. Maybe not all of them, like the 12 and 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. Hey, I got an idea, and so we need to talk. But I mean, and we're all like, oh, okay, and then we don't sleep because we're waiting until sun up so we can get our marching orders. But I love it. I love it. I love it. And I love you. But what would you tell, how would you motivate in your Deb Harris style, for those who do not know? How do you get people together? How do you rally the community together?
You know, that's that's a hard question. The what works for one does not necessarily work for the other. And I think that getting to know people in your community, getting to know their story, that's important. When I sit down, or when I see you or talk to you, I'm always asking, well, how is so and so? Or how are your folks at home? Or, whatever is going on, whatever you told me the last time I spoke to you is what I'm asking you about, because I think letting people know that they're cared for, and that you care about them, and that it is not, just it's not being selfish. It's that I care about you, and so I want to know about your family. I want to know about your kids. I want to know about whatever. um, I don't wait until Christmas or birthdays. If I see something that I think will uplift someone, you're going to get it right then and there, because I'm not sure I'm going to be here for your birthday or for Thanksgiving or for Christmas or whatever holiday is coming up. So I want to give you whatever is on my heart when I see you, or when I get it, or when it comes to me. And so I think that helping people, or letting people know that you care about them for them, um, and not about what they can do for you or for anybody else. And I think letting people know that they're cared about and that they are truly loved, um, really does go a long way to helping to motivate them.
Mhm.
So when you go to that person and ask them to do something, they may be more likely to want to do it because they have felt that love, that you have reached out to them. And I think if we all do that, for one another, whether it's people that are in our immediate family or folks that we see, in the grocery store or wherever. I think that help letting people know that they're cared about.
Mhm.
A perfect example, and a group of us got together during COVID, and we put up chairs with white bows on the lawn in front of City Hall. And we did that because we wanted our community members to know that we were thinking about them, and that we understood that they had lost someone in their family, from our community, that will never be here again. And we wanted them to know that we cared about them. And so I think that those are the little things that you do as a community to let people know that we feel your need, and we feel your sorrow, we feel your happiness, and we feel your joy, and we want to celebrate those things with you, and we also want to grieve with you, and so I think help letting people know that they're cared about um, is goes a long way to helping them want to be involved and want to and them wanting to help someone else. Is that
Yeah, no,
yeah.
that's spot on, and we're hearing from the community. You are so loved by so many people, and so many people here respect you, and we know that um, your wisdom really um, it's necessary. It's an essential part of keeping this community together. And so that's why it was so perfect to have you as our Kwanzaa leader for this evening, to spark in us, um, how were we needing to poise ourselves to become community leaders and influencers in our communities. Collective work and responsibility, and you've hit on it all this evening. Um, I think the only question that I would like to have you answer as we bring this celebration not to enclose, but just a little pause. Um, how do you get involved? What would you tell the community? How do you get involved? So now we've had this discussion, and it is our goal. That's why we do this, why we have these discussions, that now we've ignited a flame in some people who want to get involved. So what would you tell those community members?
I'd say, find something that you're interested in. If you're the type of person, you like kids, you really like to be around kids, then find a program or an activity or an event where you can be with kids and you can help them. If you have a heart for older people, find a place where you can go to be of service. If you have a heart for people who may be challenged in different ways, then you need to find a way to be a part of helping and being of service to them. Uh, I tell, just like I used to tell the little ones when they tell me they're bored, and I was like, boredom is a choice, and so I have something for you. So if people cannot think of something that they can do, I have something for you, and you can reach out to me, and I will help you find an opportunity that will hopefully fulfill the need, to want to serve. Dr. King said all of us can serve. Anybody can serve.
Absolutely.
We can, and I think that that's important. And it doesn't mean that you have to do. Some people say, I don't want to work as hard as you do, Miss Deb. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I get that, but I got something for you, and there's something that you can do. And if we all did just a little bit, then some of us wouldn't have to do so much.
Mm,
So everybody did something,
yeah.
and I used to tell my son when he was first starting out, as a freelance, person working in film and whatever. And I would tell him, just get up every day and do something. Get up every day and do something. Take a picture of something. Go videotape, video something, but you have to keep moving. And so I think that your life will be fuller if you do something. whatever it is, even if it's that, you're walking down the street and you see some garbage on the ground or paper or whatever, pick it up. I mean, just do something. And I think people will feel a lot better about their community and about themselves. Um, and every little bit helps. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing with us and inspiring us and urging us and encouraging us. Um, and most of all, setting the record straight on how to have um, a productive and happy community. Um, it is all about um, us all coming together,
mhm,
um, and I'm being reminded of this 150th anniversary of which
mhm.
you
Yes.
have again been such a big part, played a main part in getting us where we are right now in
Mhm,
this very moment. And there are more things that you're doing
mhm,
to push this project forward that I know we'll be announcing some things in the coming weeks that the LBE project is doing. So thank you for that. For that, we honor you, and that is why you are the chiefess of our community. Um, I think if we're talking about how to get the entire community, because again,
mhm,
we want to focus on, and we'll close with this. We're talking about the well being of the world.
mhm,
So the Black or African American or African community is just a part of the bigger world. And so how would you, or what would you tell our Latino family, our brothers and sisters, our indigenous brothers and sisters, our European American brothers and sisters? What 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 would you tell that family why it is important that we all come together to
mhm.
make this one big community?
Yeah. You know, that's a good question, and there lots of people have tried to answer that in so many different ways. But let me just say this: is that um, we, as different communities, well, first of all, we're all part of the human community. First of all,
Mhm, mhm,
and so whatever advantages, or I shouldn't say advantages, but whatever advances the Black community makes, it's going to benefit everybody. Whatever advances the Native community makes, it's going to affect everybody. And so I think that we have to stop letting our competition get in the way. We know that each of our communities have different needs. We know that there is a table, and we all should have a seat at that table. And we should not do this. Well, you got this, and so I don't want to support you because I don't have this or I didn't get that. I think that we have to be smarter than that. We are so much more powerful when we work together. Again, when we talk about Ujima, collective work and responsibility, that our brothers and sisters' problems are our problems and we work to solve them together, that's key. And we have to really take that Ujima principle to heart, and you have to be able to say, you know what, uh yeah, Black lives do matter, all lives matter, and so I need to make sure that whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm supporting that group. because we all know what's happening in our country, in the world. We can see it every day. Sometimes we don't want to see it, want to, bury our heads in the sand or whatever. But, you know, you have to be willing to kind of put self aside for right now and say, okay, this is a bigger issue. This is more important right this minute, right now, at this point in our community or in our society or in our country. And so we all have to get on board. The thing that just made my heart glad was when I turned on the television a year and a half ago, and I saw all these young people of all colors, all shades, all ethnic and socioeconomic backgrounds coming together, talking about how wrong the George Floyd murder was and how terrible that was. And so it gave me hope that it's, us older folks are going to need to get out of the way, because if we have issues with this race or that race or whatever, our young people are showing us that we need to move out of the way because we're the problem. And they're coming together, and they're not saying that other lives don't matter. They're saying right now we see what's happening to Black people in our country, and we don't like it, and it's not right. And so we're going to do something about it. And so I think that to me is what I would tell people, is that you need to take a look at those young folks that were out there marching and protesting, and yes, sometimes young people, do things differently than the way we would do things. And I get that. Um, but their hearts were in the right place. They saw an injustice and they wanted to say something about it. And so they give me hope. And I'm not going to see it in my lifetime. Maybe we won't see it in their lifetime, but maybe we'll see it in their grandkids' lifetime, so that we won't have to have these kind of, discussions, because we will there'll be a bigger understanding, or a better understanding of our, society, and of different cultures, and that kind of stuff. But that's what I would say, is that, we have to stop, you know, being jealous of what one group gets and the other one didn't. Everybody needs something. And so we just need to keep addressing needs, you know. We
Exactly.
need to, and I'll say this in closing. NAU just got a new president about close to almost a year ago, or whatever, 9 months ago. And what I've heard him say more times than I've ever heard any other president say at NAU since I've been there, he talks a lot about equity
Mm-hmm.
in education. And to me, that means that if the Hispanic students' graduation rate is lower than any other student's graduation rate, then we need to focus on that right now. If the Black students' retention is lower than the retention of any other group, then we have to focus on that. So being equitable, giving each group what they need to go to the next level. And so I think that we need to all take a lesson from that. And so there are going to be times, when there's going to be an issue with, with our indigenous population, and we need to all be concerned about that.
Mm-hmm.
And our indigenous brothers and sisters need to be concerned about what's happening with Black folks,
Yep.
in this country.
Yeah.
Uh, so anyway, we could go on and talk about that forever, but I'm gonna stop right there.
No, and I like that. Thank you. And here again, that is why we needed you to come and lead us through Ujima this evening. Again, collective work, coming together, all of us,
Yeah.
for the well-being of the world, and it is our responsibility, each of us. There is something that each of us can give to this collective work that so greatly needs to be done. And so, with that being said, we're again so happy. Thank you for for our supporters and viewers who've seen more than just one or two of our live streams. Please keep in mind that you can watch all 100 plus lived Black experience
Yes.
community dialogues on our YouTube channel. And we're
Mhm.
very grateful that the community and people from all over are still going back and watching some of these discussions. And so, again, if this is not community engagement or impact, I
Mhm.
don't know what is, because and it's not about the numbers who shows up, because I think whoever comes, whoever is present in
Mhm.
the moment, that is who needed to be there.
Mhm.
And so, you know, uh, if we want to take this and look at it through the biblical scriptures, which says if it's just two or more, two or three gathered together, that has great significance and it has great impact.
Mhm.
And so it's not about the numbers, but you can go back and see that individuals, the community, are still, they may not be there live and in the moment, but they are going back to see what the Lived Black Experience Project is talking about. And so, with that being said, blessed are you, Chiefess Deb. Um, I, 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 I'm humbled by you and how the ancestors work and speak through you. And for that, as a community, we are blessed. And so blessed are those who have joined us this evening. We encourage you to come back tomorrow and celebrate again with us. And so this evening, we light the candle of Ujima, collective work and responsibility. Until we meet again, go in grace.